When I was coming up in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a certain air around USC quarterbacks. Carson Palmer won a Heisman Trophy, then right after him, Matt Leinart came through and won a Heisman Trophy as well, plus a national title to go along with it. Now, admittedly, I was young, and this is simpler time because you're not aware of media bias. So at the time, if a sports analyst was to say something, I pretty much took that as gold. So given the way they was painting the picture, for a short period of time, in my mind, USC quarterbacks were the standard. So when Mark Sanchez came in behind those other guys, he inherited a lot of prestige as far as how the media spoke about him. Dude was a top high school prospect and was the new USC quarterback waiting in the wings. As a junior, he put together a really good season and was drafted 5th overall by the New York Jets. So Mark Sanchez went from the prestige that USC had at that time into a massive New York market, which ended up keeping his name pretty relevant. He would later finagle that relevance into a sports media career of his own. Now, Mark Sanchez had a couple memorable moments in the league, and yes, a few of them were positive, like for instance making solid playoff runs in each of his first 2 seasons. Mark Sanchez and Ben Roethlisberger are the only 2 players in league history to start their career with back-to-back trips to the conference championship game. But for Mark, as far as most fans are concerned, his most memorable moments are actually blunders. We talking plays like the infamous Thanksgiving butt fumble, a play so bad it's got his own wiki page, dawg. Being remembered for the butt fumble is probably not a legacy that anyone would choose to be remembered for. But after recent news, Mark Sanchez would love to go back to the days where that was the worst thing on his resume. Mark Sanchez versus a 69-year-old man. Recently, former quarterback and current Fox Sports analyst Mark Sanchez instigated what turned into a life-threatening situation, and the story is as random as it is disturbing. After reading several articles on the incident, this is my interpretation of what happened. Keep in mind, this is all alleged, and every article didn't affirm every single fact. Some left certain things out, a few had unique information, so this is me looking at several of them and trying to arrange the significant details in order to paint a full and hopefully accurate version of the story. Mark was in Indianapolis to work as an analyst on Fox's broadcast of the Colts-Raiders game. The game was set to be held on Sunday, October 5th, of course, 2025. But on the Saturday morning before the game, 38-year-old Mark Sanchez assaulted a 69-year-old man, reportedly over a parking spot. The over a parking spot narrative paints a certain picture, but doesn't really paint the picture of what actually happened. Don't get me wrong, dog, it's not better in any way. You just get a different but equally bad picture with the proper details. The entire thing took place in an area filled with surveillance cameras. Therefore, most of the altercation was actually caught on tape. Every player has to sit through some bad reps in the film room, but this isn't a mistake you can correct next week. The 69-year-old truck driver works for a company that exchanges commercial frying oil. So as truck drivers do when they're delivering or hauling away their actual cargo. The guy was parked in the loading dock area of the hotel he was picking up grease from. It's 12:30 a.m. on Saturday morning. Mark Sanchez is out back behind the hotel near this same loading dock area. What's he doing out here after midnight? He's running wind sprints. Okay, cool. It's a little bit weird and not really smart, but at this point, nobody's done anything wrong. But then Mark feels that the man's truck is in the way of his wind sprints. Then he approaches the man to demand that he stop doing his actual job and move his truck so that Mark can treat the man's whole work area as if it was his own personal track again at 12:30 in the morning. When detectives reviewed the footage from the tape, they could see Mark Sanchez approach the man's truck and initiate what they called a conversation. The truck driver said Mark smelled like a tub of alcohol. He said he was aggressive, belligerent, and slurring his speech, as he demanded that the guy move his truck. At one point, Mark just climbs into the cab of the dude's truck, despite the guy's obvious insistence that he not do that. But the guy did say that once he told Mark to get out of his truck, Mark willingly got out of the vehicle. But then Mark kept repeating over and over that the manager did not want the old man to be there. Then he once again tried to get in the man's truck, presumably to try to just move it himself. But since Mark keeps yelling about the manager, the old man's like, all right, cool, I'll call the manager. But then the old man said that Mark tried to block the man from retrieving his phone to call the manager. The article says he walked back and forth around his truck multiple times. It doesn't say this part verbatim, but just based on the way this reads, it seems like Mark was placing himself between the man and his truck. Because other than that, I don't know why he would have to walk around the truck multiple times to try to get his cell phone. Oh, actually, I missed that part. It does say right here, it's clear as day, that Mark allegedly shoved the old man while he was again trying to get his phone from the truck. And that's according to the affidavit. Now, assuming it's true that Mark Sanchez was intoxicated, something like that obviously will impair a person's judgment. But to feel like you can come to this man's city and interrupt his job just so that you can get a workout in when and wherever you decide to, that's a pretty scary level of entitlement. So it starts like that, then it get crazy. After Mark climbs out of the man's truck, the surveillance footage caught him throwing the old man against the wall. So now he's assaulting a nearly 70-year-old man for just doing his job and posing no threat to him. So after he got into the man's truck, got out of the truck, and pushed the man into the wall, it's not enough for Mark, and he's still seeing red and still aggressively pursuing the old man. Bro, he's still advancing, moving forward. We're in a verbal altercation and you keep trying to close distance. Every man on the planet is reading that situation the exact same way. And in this case, as the smaller, weaker, older man, the truck driver is smart enough to know that he can't allow that. He can't allow this man to close this distance, especially given the fact that you're dealing with someone who's acting erratically, is clearly upset in an alley at 12:30 in the morning. The truck driver at this point said that he feared that this random man who he did not know was trying to kill him. So the old man's thought process at this point is just make it home. All bets are off. He struggled for a minute, but was able to get his mace out and spray Mark with it. This was a warning shot, hoping the ex-quarterback would come to his senses and fall back. But the warning shot wasn't enough for Mark, as he still continued to press forward. At this point, the old man's down to his last resort, and he pulls out his knife to protect himself. When a pepper sprayed Mark, who's still coming forward, gets into range, the old man takes his knife and he plunges it into Mark, according to him, 2 or 3 times. At this point, the man is scared. He's not sure how many times or where he hit Mark with the knife. Maybe he didn't get that deep, or maybe he just didn't hit any real critical spot. Or maybe Mark was just that out of it, that despite the stabs with the knife, he kept coming forward. After that, the old man fell or was pushed into a dumpster where the altercation was taking place. The affidavit says, quote, somehow Toll, aka the old man, made it to his feet. And when Mr. Sanchez came at the old man, he stabbed Mr. Sanchez for the last time. Next thing the old man knew, Mr. Sanchez looked at him with a look of shock. He slowly turned around and Mr. Sanchez took off northbound in the alley. This is the footage of Mark leaving the scene of the incident, trying to cover his wound with his hand. He ended up in the hospital in critical condition, but was later said to be stable. So I guess he's alright. The old man he attacked is also stable, but suffered really bad wounds for a person of any age. Healing is less efficient the older you get, which adds even another level to this assault. The man suffered a severe laceration to his face, penetrating all the way in through his left cheek. The laceration also partially penetrated his tongue, which makes me assume that at some point either Mark got a hold of the knife, or maybe the man accidentally stabbed himself when he fell or was thrown into the dumpster. One eyewitness said they definitely saw Mark Sanchez slam the old man to the ground. Both parties are super fortunate to have escaped with their lives, as this horrible situation could have been even worse. But now the old man has a hole in his face and a speech impediment because Mark Sanchez allegedly got drunk and went on a rampage. Mark says he doesn't remember much of anything that took place in the incident. Luckily for him, because the dude he assaulted will most likely be reliving that trauma for the rest of his life. When you get attacked like this while you're doing your job, it's not something you just get over like that. It's hard to imagine being an old man just working a simple job, you know. This guy comes and insists that you move your truck and then hops his drunk self into your vehicle. The man's young enough to be your son, but he proceeds to assault you when you tell him to take his drunk self back to his room and take a nap. Go sleep that off. Now, it's unclear at this point if the old man agitated the situation by being disrespectful, which wouldn't be smart, but obviously still wouldn't give Mark Sanchez the right to assault him. Here's what Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears said. Certainly the thing that stands out to us is that this was a situation that didn't need to occur. We're literally talking about people fighting over a parking space or a dispute about where people were parked, and it resulted in a person with incredibly significant injuries. When he says a person, I'm not sure which person he's talking about. Like, as far as I can see, it seems like they both came out the situation with significant injury. Although the early reports seem to suggest that Mark Sanchez definitely took the worst of it. The old man, Perry Toll, has now filed a lawsuit against Sanchez and Fox Sports. Toll suffered, quote, significant injuries to his head, jaw, and neck. And he states in the lawsuit that he was permanently disfigured by the incident. After getting a better understanding of the old man's injuries, the charges against Mark Sanchez have now been raised to a level 5 felony battery charge, on top of his public intoxication and a myriad of other charges. If he's found guilty, Mark could face between 1 and 6 years in prison. If you pray, man, pray for Perry Toll that his physical and emotional wounds will heal. And also pray for Mark Sanchez that whatever underlying issues that caused this can be addressed and healed as well. I obviously don't know what's going on with dude, but when a 38-year-old is getting into this level of a fight with an elderly man who's not like threatening his family or something, that's a clear sign that there's something not right with that 38-year-old. You know, this story is extremely disturbing and it just happened. So there's a ton of information that will likely continue to come out over the next several days and weeks to come. Eyewitnesses even say they saw the two men filming each other on their phones before the altercation got physical. So at some point, we're likely to see some of these moments that led up to the fight. I'll be interested to see what information comes out, what twists and turns this story still has under wraps. As a man in this life, there will be times where you're gonna have to defend yourself. I would never encourage any man not to defend themselves or protect their family, but be smart and don't initiate situations like this for stupid reasons, dealing with ego, pride, or maybe unresolved emotional issues. If a potential altercation does not need to be escalated, bro, just chill. If you go looking for trouble, then you might just find a little bit more than what you bargained for. If you're mad about something else, learn how to deal with your anger. Don't try to project it onto the next man, especially a 69-year-old who you might incorrectly consider an easy mark.